Luton Town look to bounce back when the biggest club in the world come to Kenilworth Road on Sunday afternoon. It's Luton Town against Manchester United. Alongside me to preview the game, I've got the Lutonian journalist James Cunliffe, and Luton-born actor Sam Gittings is back alongside us for this one as well. Gents, much more positive for this preview episode. You ready to do it?
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll preview the big game after this intro.
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got these massive souls. We're Luton people, and that's what we care about.
Hello everyone, welcome along to another episode of the Luton Town Supporters Trust podcast. As I said before the intro, we are previewing the big game against Manchester United, and I've got James and I've got Sam alongside me once again. Sam, I'll come to you first. When the fixture list came out at the start of the season, we were all looking at certain games. Manchester United at home was one that jumped out, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. The bigger the team that comes to Luton, the more I feel, the more positive I feel about it for some reason. Even when City came to town, I just think we play well against big teams, particularly in our own backyard.
Yeah, I quite agree. Jimbo, Sky done us a favour, because this was going to be Saturday at 3 o'clock. And we're actually at that time of year now where 3 o'clock's quite bright in the afternoon. But I looked earlier on, and around just after 5, darkness was starting to set in again. The lights are going to take full effect. If they're not there right at the start of the game, they'll certainly be there by half time. Might play right into our hands, that one.
I don't know about times and dates and stuff, but I don't want another 3 p.m. library like it was against Sheffield United. So yeah, the later the better.
Yeah, I have a funny feeling it's not going to be a library in this one. That is for sure. At Manchester United, then we'll start with those. Is it, and I'll stick with you, Jay, is it going to be slightly against us that they came down here in the Carabao Cup 2 or 3 seasons ago, or the fact that was during COVID and they didn't really get the full Kenny experience? Does that not make much difference? I mean, I think they were changing in the John Moore Lounge back then, or the Nick Owen Bar or something like that, but obviously it was sterile, it was dead. They beat us 3-0. Completely different this time, or will that play a fact that some of their players do at least know what to expect?
Oh, no, completely different. If we get it right and it's a proper raucous atmosphere against them, and let's hope it is, then it'd be completely different. And I wouldn't mind it if we could arrange for them to get changed in the John Moore again, though. Whatever that'll put that might put the mockers on them a little bit. But they're a different team, different manager. Yeah, they've got some of the same players, but they were arguably in better form back then in that season than they are now. I know they've picked up recently and obviously had a very good win at Aston Villa, whose home fortress seems to be crumbling a little bit. And so, full credit to them there. But, they've had 9 defeats this season, and that's not a Manchester United that many recognise, probably even particularly their fans.
Yeah, that's true. I was watching that Aston Villa game on Sunday, Sam, and it flashed up their record away from home against the top teams is terrible, which kind of suggests that they're not too bad against the lower sides. But this will be a different experience. They're not going to be walking through the main stand to get to the pitch like they did last time. Obviously, it's all going to be all of that. But Jose Mourinho, I think, was their manager when they came down here last time, which goes to show how long ago it was. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was Mourinho.
Was that the 3-0?
I thought it was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, wasn't it?
Was it?
Yeah, I don't remember.
I genuinely didn't think he was there that long.
No idea. Yeah,
we lost 3-0, didn't we?
We did lose 3-0.
We were in the game for a little while, if I remember.
We were. It was 1-0 until late, wasn't it? And then they brought Rashford on, and
that's right.
Rashford scored a couple of goals. But the way I'm leaning is their away form isn't spectacular, albeit it's slightly better against the teams lower down the league.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's to be expected. With Man United, they're always going to be convinced that they should be beating teams in the lower half of their league. But having said that, it's not a sturdy vessel that they've got at the minute. It's certainly something that seems to be up and down. And yeah, they've hit a little bit of form the last couple of games. West Ham aren't playing particularly well. As you say, Villa's home record's crumbling a little bit. I think we're, forget Sheffield United. I think we're improving every game. And let's remember at their gaff, it was only 1-0 and they were lacklustre. I think they're going to struggle when they come down to the Kenny.
That's what we got Sam on the podcast for. Man United's
Bit of blind optimism.
You were right to bring up that Sheffield United game, though, because, James, this is going to be completely different. There's no two banks of four sat on the edge of the penalty box here. There is no Manchester United fan in the world that will accept Manchester United going and parking a bus at Kenilworth Road. Just not going to happen. So Erik ten Hag is going to be forced to, even if it's only playing sort of counter-attacking football, they're still going to have to be further up the pitch. So this is going to be more your Brighton, Chelsea, Newcastle home game than it is your Sheffield United home game.
I would certainly hope so. I mean, they're a much better side, and they'll want attacking football. That's what their whole history has been built on, and so the fans will demand it. The fans will be in the stadium, unlike the last time. But Luton just play better against these sides that will want to play football. And it's kind of no disrespect to Sheffield United. They came and did a job. They did what they had to do. And Luton found that very difficult. They found it very difficult against Burnley at home. And that's something that is probably the next stage of the evolution for Luton and how they're going to be able to address those challenges when they come. But when they're playing the Manchester United of the world, they're firmly the underdog. And almost the shackles will be off a little bit. And I think that will play into Luton's hands, and they'll be able to stretch the pitch a little bit more. It'll open up a little bit more than it did against Sheffield United, that's for sure, absolutely. And if you start with intensity, which wasn't there against the Blades, then I think that puts Man United on the back foot and they won't like it.
It's bounce back time as well for us, isn't it? It's time. Whenever we react so well when we lose, we react so well. We're going to come out kicking and screaming, that's for sure.
Well, everyone was saying it's so Luton to go and lose against Sheffield United after this form, but why can't it be so Luton to do that against Sheffield United and then go and take a scalp like Manchester United?
Yeah.
Why not?
Absolutely.
It's doable.
Yeah, I absolutely love Sam point. These players don't need telling. There's a few things these players don't need telling. They don't need telling when they've been crap. They know it. They alluded to it in the Sheffield United review podcast, the two that we heard from. And they don't need telling to be up for big games. They're naturally up for big games. And so we've got two of these things. I always think back to the times, certainly under Nathan, but probably more under Nathan because we haven't really been crap under Rob Edwards very often. But under Nathan, whenever we was crap, we always won the next game. Even like going further back to Graham Jones, we mentioned it, didn't we? When we got battered 7 at Brentford, we went and won the next game. And that's a real thing about these boys. When they know they've let themselves down, not just the fans, themselves down more importantly, they just bounce back the following week. And I'm not saying that we're going to beat Man United, but we're going to put in a hell of a lot better performance than what we did against Sheffield United. It's almost a given, that part of it.
Yeah, 100%. It is. It's a given that we're going to perform better than that. And I think we all can trust in Robbie and the boys that they are going to turn up. I think we're going to beat them.
Keep your score prediction till the end, though.
I will do.
We'll wait for that.
Yeah.
You mentioned the away game earlier on. Rasmus Højlund missed an absolute sitter in the first 5 minutes of that game. But since then, he's kind of come alive. I think he scored in his last 4, might even be 5 Premier League games. So suddenly he's more of a threat to look after in this game than what he would have been in that game. So whoever it is, that centre person of the three, and we'll come on to the Luton team selection shortly, they've really got to make sure they know where he is at all times.
Yeah, he's hitting form. But again, we're going to say this about quite a lot of the United players. We're saying they're hitting form. They're having a good couple of games at the moment, and there's no disrespect for Man United. I've always been quite fond of them as a club, but I don't think we can call it hitting form until it's 3 or 4 games deep, and they're still doing it.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's a fair call. Højlund, threat.
Yeah, he's definitely a threat. I mean,
he should be for the price tag.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, but they've got players like half of their squad, well, most of their squad cost more than the entire Luton squad altogether, and that's not unusual in this league, is it? The expectation will be on there that they'll come and he'll continue that vein of scoring that he's on. But I'd point you to Mohamed Salah being kept quiet here.
Mm-hmm.
And, Manchester City largely being kept quiet. Arsenal, the list goes on. All these big teams that have come here and found it very difficult.
Mm.
And that's not because it's not a fluke when it's been that many. It's because of the way Luton have attacked those games. And I think this is another one of those. And if you're looking for blessings in disguise, as much as we didn't like it, maybe that Sheffield United defeat is the kick up the bum that gets you back on the horse, so to speak, and changes that.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, the crazy thing is, if at the turn of the year someone said you were going to get 3 points from Man United and Sheffield United, you'd have taken them.
Yeah.
Just so happens that it might come through Man United rather than Sheffield United, and not the route that you necessarily think. So if we do win on Sunday, we'll put that Sheffield United game to bed immediately. That's for sure.
I think we're about 20. I think just after Christmas, I said I worked out average, we'd probably need about 27 more points to stay up. And I think we're already, now we need maybe another 20, I think it is, since then. So, we're doing okay points-wise, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Certainly enough games against teams that we need to beat coming up. And, if we can win this one, then happy days. If we do win this one, you've got to think we'll have had to have kept Marcus Rashford quiet. If he wants to pop down on the old tequila bars in Luton the night before the game and miss this one, that would be rather handy, a la Newport. But he's not an England international for no reason, and it was him coming on in that Carabao Cup game that just finished us off, really.
Yeah, I really admire Rashford, particularly in an England shirt, and I think he's a really good young lad, from what I've seen of him and some of the work he does in his communities. I think he's had a bit of a bad rap recently. I mean, he's 26, he went out for a drink. He's had quite a stressful time at the club. I think they probably all have. I think he'll be coming with something to prove, which is quite terrifying. And yeah, he's definitely one we've got to look out for. We need to stick someone on him and make sure we're not letting too much space in behind, because he'll love that.
He should be Ross Barkley's England compatriot in the summer, because Rashford's one of Gareth's favourites. But we don't really need to alert Gareth to the situation that Rashford's back into form on Sunday, do we? We need to, whoever it is down that right-hand side, and again, we'll come on to that in a minute, needs to be at their best, because generally when he's good, United are good.
He is, but he also, I feel, is quite prone to frustration, and if you can deliver that and get under his skin a little bit, then it leaves him out of the game slightly, and I think that's a distinct possibility. If Gareth Southgate, by the way, wants to be at Kenilworth Road, but about the only bloody time he is down there, he might see some decent Luton Town players that might make him think twice. But Rashford's, I think he's better in an England shirt than he is in a Man United shirt, but they've had so many different chopping and changes and managers and stuff, and he's had that period where everybody loved him, and then out of favour, then he's like that, like you say, he's in the bars for all hours of the night. Which, if they all want to do that, I can show you a few places in Luton if you want to have a drink.
Jesus, if they want to do that, I'll buy them around. It's not. It's absolutely not a problem as long as you stay late.
I think Rashford can probably afford to buy us around. Probably 300 or 400 grand a week, is he on or something?
You'd like to hope he can. That is for sure. I mean, Gareth was at Villa Park on Sunday watching Man United, so he's not going to be at Kenilworth Road watching Man United, is he? He's already got his excuses in for that one.
Absolutely determined not to come anywhere near LU1, isn't he?
He's actually seen less at Kenilworth Road than those iPads that were finally started working in the Sheffield United game.
You might want to go LU4 as well, since that's where they're going.
I was thinking it, but I didn't say anything.
Yeah, I was along those lines. Is
that Power Court yours? It'll probably come when we're there.
I didn't want to mug you off.
I was thinking of the bars I was going to take him to.
Fair enough. LU1. Might want to steer clear of there if that's where Jimbo's going to be, but for all Højlund, Rashford, Garnacho, Fernandes, and all of these other attacking players that they have, I think it's actually Scott McTominay who's their top scorer. Now, he didn't even start against Aston Villa on Sunday, but still came off the bench to score the winner. Generally, when I see him score, though, he scores aerial goals. He scored a header against Aston Villa, and I remember a couple of set-piece goals that he scored earlier in the season in the same game. I think it was against Brentford, but Don't quote me on that. If I'm wrong, United fans, I apologise, but it is in one of the games. But that's fine by us, isn't it? Because we generally defend set pieces pretty well, so we'd probably be okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, look, if they come down and don't score, I'll be very surprised. But we defend set pieces really well, and we've got a good track record of defending corners and free kicks over this season. And I think he can be kept quiet. He's dangerous everywhere, though, isn't he? He plays a nice pass. He can shoot from outside the box. He's a really clever player. It's just going to be about having someone tight to him whenever he's on the ball, which is easier said than done. Of course it is, but again, another thing we're great at is holding shape, shepherding players away from goal, and making sure that the danger isn't gonna come on top of us every single time they attack.
Yeah, I would agree. And of course, it might be that McTominay doesn't start, because one reason why Southgate might be at Luton on Sunday is to watch Kobbie Mainoo, who's supposedly in line for a Euro call-up. Way too soon for that, but he's one player that could be watching. And also Casemiro's back, so it might just be that McTominay's not got a space in the side, even though he is one of their better scorers.
Yeah, from all the sort of stories you hear, you kind of feel that even though he barely played, that Kobbie Mainoo is going to be picked well ahead of Ross Barkley, regardless of how good Ross Barkley is. And that's probably why we won't win anything in the summer. And if you do, then you can gladly clip this up and post it all over the place, because I'll be drunk. I won't care. But yeah.
And the bad news is we've got 2 more years of Gareth as well. So the papers will tell you.
I think that's
he needs to win the thing and then give him an extra contract. Yeah. And if he doesn't, he needs to be out in his ear.
Well, you mentioned before Rashford plays better for his country than he does his club. That was the same with Maguire. That was the same with a lot of these boys. Because what Gareth's done really well is bring them all together, and they love playing for England. What he's never done, and I think I'm being honest here, if a little bit disrespectful, I apologise, but he's never outmanaged another manager. He's never been a tactician. And I mean, look at the Italy final.
Yeah.
They figured out what we were doing.
Changed it. We
did nothing, and we've never done anything. But anyway, this isn't the England podcast.
No,
is it?
Disrespectful to Gareth. We'd never be that on this podcast.
Of course not. No.
Well, you're welcome in Luton.
Yeah,
open arms, mate. Come down.
Never be disrespectful if you actually turned up to a Luton game, Gareth. That is for sure. They're your chief United threats. Of course, there's threats all over the park. You know, whoever the 10 outfield players are, they're going to be threats. This is Manchester United after all. How do we go about this then, team-wise? Do you see any changes to the 11 that played against Sheffield United? I guess the automatic thought process would be Ted and Mengi against his former club, who sold him for a stupidly low amount. And why they even sold him at all, I've absolutely no idea. When I watched their defence, they're so bad. You would imagine he would come back into the side. So therefore, would you bring him in? First of all, would you bring him in, Sam? And then would you bring him in directly for Burke? Or, in light of the fact that Osho's been taken on a couple of times recently, is it time to maybe give Gabe a bit of a rest? Maybe he just needs that rest.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. I think I'm going to direct swap him for Berg. I just think Ted and Osho do play well together when they get to. I know they've both been in and out a little bit. In terms of changes, I can't really see many changes coming other than that. Personally, I'd like to see Townsend start perhaps over Clark and just have a little shuffle around the midfield. But I trust in everything Robbie goes with, and I think he's probably going to keep it the same.
Yeah, of course, as ever, we're doing this before Rob's press conference on Friday. So we're kind of guessing with team news, but the fact that Mengi was on the bench on Saturday would suggest that his injury is not, terribly bad. In which case, would you bring him back after that defensive performance, or would you say to the same team, go again, you fucked up, and put it right?
I think based on when other members of the squad have not had a particularly good game or a good period, you think back to Elijah, came out the side and had to bide his time coming off the bench. Carlton as well.
Yeah.
I think that probably leads me to think that they'd swap out Osho for Ted and Mengi, because it was just that really, it was just a knock. He had an ankle knock on the Thursday before the game, and they were going to look at him before that. The fact he made the squad is probably positive on that front. So I don't think it's anything particularly bad. But he was just on fire before then when he was in the side, and he was that real leader at the back, which Gabe is. But I think, the mistakes, the two mistakes against Sheffield United, and although he made one against Newcastle as well, but it kind of gets glossed over because it was an absolute thriller. And even we said, you've not got to talk about defences in a game like that. It's all about the attacking play. So, but, when you're assessing a team that's going to have to come in and stop Man United, you can't be giving away silly stuff like that. And so I would see that, Osho maybe has a rest for this one.
Yeah, that's kind of how I would see it. The last thing you need is Rashford versus Osho in that situation. After Gordon and after Archer, you just don't need to put him in that situation, really. To be
also, it's a situation where every team's got mountains of analysts. They'll see that and they might target Gabe, and that's the last thing you need, really. If his I don't want to say his confidence would be low, because I don't think his confidence ever is low. He's very
which is a great thing about him as well as
absolutely, he's really confident and he's athletic. So it's not like I don't think he's knackered or anything, even though he's come in and had to really step up because Lox is not around in the squad, in the playing squad. So I don't think it's anything to do with that, but I just think this is the Premier League, and you just have to be ruthless sometimes. And like you said in the Sheffield review podcast, it's not that we're digging our show out. You can go back on this podcast and clip out all manner of times we've sung his praises, as we have many of the players. It's just that, in this, everybody has these dips and rises in form, and that's probably where he is at the moment, in a little bit of a dip.
Yeah. And it's just little mistakes, isn't it? Because there's actually parts of the game, even in the Sheffield game, where he's doing some pretty incredible stuff. He's beating players, getting forward, and I know he put a header just over the bar, but it's just those little mistakes. And if you can't iron those out, then maybe it is time to have a little rest.
I think the mistakes are symptomatic of his confidence, though, because he obviously feels, say for the first goal against Sheffield United, he obviously feels that he can get that ball under control and then set off and get Luton going forward, and it just didn't happen. And I think that's where it is, because we discussed in that podcast, the last one, that maybe you should just be clearing that out and clearing your lines and punting it long and hacking it clear. And he's not really that sort of defender, is he? He has been fantastic since he's come back in the side. He's clearly proven he can cut it at Premier League level. It's just these last couple of games, these things have crept in. And in the same way that it happened to maybe Elijah, you take him out, reassess, and then when he comes back in, he's hungry again.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's exactly how I see it. Crikey, he's not a bad player by any stretch of the imagination, Gabe, but like you say, there's so many analysts in this league. It's a ruthless, brutal league, that's for sure. Sam mentioned about Townsend maybe coming in for Clark. Do you see any sort of changes in the forward areas, midfield forwards?
I do. I was surprised that he's been on the bench for the last couple of games, because he's been so effective. I mean, he got on the ball plenty against the Blades, but like the rest of the team, it just wasn't happening, and that can sometimes be a thing in a football match. So nothing to blame there. I thought Clark was very good for maybe 10-15 minutes in the Sheffield game. He was getting into good spaces. It was just the touch and the ball just weren't happening. And then as the game progressed, and it wasn't only Clark, so I'm not digging him out, that passes were going awry or touches weren't quite right. And if they weren't spot on, Sheffield United were on you straight away and toe poking it away, and it was just very frustrating. And in the same ways, really done nothing bad, nothing catastrophically bad, but we've got a squad here that the players on the bench, you can legitimately make a case for them starting all of them, and we've not had that for years, really.
Yeah, true.
No, we haven't. It'll be interesting to see what team changes are made, whether those two changes get made or whether Rob does send the same 11 out into battle and tell them to put on a better performance. One person who's definitely going to start, Sam, and I promised you in the last one that we would talk about him, is Ross Barkley. Just tell us, how much are you enjoying watching Ross Barkley in a Luton shirt right now?
It's an absolute pleasure. He is just stunning, and when you're there, as we're there, most weeks, it's the stuff he's doing off the ball as well. And if you're ever close enough, you can hear him talking constantly. He's just, I know the song says "Silky Scouser" is what we need. He certainly is silky, and I just think he's great. I know there's a debate about should he be playing for England. I think if you put him in the England squad or in the team and you watched him play, he fits in really nicely. Is he going to get picked over the midfielders they've got? Probably not. But I'm loving him here. I don't want him to go anywhere else.
No, me neither. Listen, we've all waxed lyrical about Ross Barkley, but he'll be a big player in this, won't he? Because, they're going to have two deep midfielders, whether it's Mainu and Casemiro, or whether it's McTominay, or even if Eriksen gets a game, whoever it is, they'll have two deeper midfielders. So him and Sambi need to dominate those two if we're going to win this game, you would think, or if not dominate them, certainly get the better of them.
Yeah.
Obviously, where he come from, you just alluded to the fact he's a Scouser, so he'll be anti-Man United like all Scousers are. So he'll be right up for this one. He didn't really play much of a prominent role at Old Trafford, so this is his first real crack at them as well. And it's the kind of stage that superstar footballers come into their own on. And that's what we would expect Ross Barkley to do. I mean, if we think back to when we played Liverpool, started the move for the goal, didn't he? The way he played against Arsenal, he scored, set another one up.
City,
against Man City.
And he played really well.
All of these top sides. So, he's going to relish going up against Man United.
Yeah, I see him causing a lot of trouble. And let's, the reason I've got a sneaky suspicion we're going to come away with a town win is because of players like him, and because he can really mix up a midfield. He floats. I know he always starts deep, but he's either starting deep and supporting the left or supporting the right. He just floats around. He never seems to be marked properly. And then when he goes, he's always scanned. He's always checked. He's always got the read. And he creates amazing plays from that.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. You all right there?
Just my phone going off, mate.
Fair enough. Yeah, look, he's going to thrive, isn't he? This is the stage where Ross Barkley does his best stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, he had a lot of the ball against Sheffield United, and he was trying to make things happen. It was just so congested. When it wasn't happening, when he was a bit further forward, he dropped a bit deep to try and pick the ball up. And it wasn't a vintage Barkley performance, because it wasn't a very good Luton performance, but he was there trying to make things happen. But he gets a lot more space for me against Manchester United, because they will see him as a threat, but they won't have three players swarming him. I don't see that. I don't see that's what Man United's midfield are about.
No, you're right.
That they won't do the same thing that Sheffield United did. And again, I have to credit them. They did that to Barkley. They did it to Chio. And then they crowded out Doughty as best they could. And then when he did get a space, he was no good at crossing for that one. So, I think when he plays against Man United, there's a big shout that he can do what he did against Arsenal, Liverpool, and the like, because they'll see him as a threat, but they'll see that they've got bigger threats.
Yeah, I agree. You mentioned Chio there. Now, we don't exactly know the situation with Luke Shaw at the time of recording this podcast. He went off at half-time against Aston Villa, and they brought Victor Lindelof on, so you wouldn't have thought they're going to take a left-back off and bring a centre-back on if he's not injured and significantly injured. So if he misses out on this game, and we've got Chio down the right-hand side, and I think it will be Chio, because Hashioka was sort of a week or two away in Rob's last press conference. I actually think we're going to see Hashioka for the first time in that cup game against Man City later in the month. I think that'll be the first time we see him, if we see him in that game. So Chio down that left-hand side. When we went to Old Trafford, Chio had just absolutely terrorised Trent Alexander-Arnold, and we were all so excited at what he could do. And Dalot just basically had him in his pocket. Yes, Chio was slightly injured from that Liverpool game, but if we can get him on the other side to Dalot, whoever that left-back is, whether it's Shaw or Lindelof or whoever they play there, we're surely going to get a lot of joy down there, because we only have to look back to the Brighton and the Newcastle games of what Chio can do. and I'm really looking forward to that battle down that side.
Yeah, I think I mean, if it's Lindelof or whoever it is, I think if you get him going, you get him putting the ball out in front of him like he did against Ward against Palace, just hit that wing and just rinsed them every single time. And that it just, even if he then has to cut back and lay off to someone, it just has their defence facing their own goal, running back. It has us going through the lines, and it makes us just more of a threat. It puts them on edge. It lifts the crowd. Everything that he does is all about, when he's on form, is all about positivity. And I think that's really key. We need positivity when we're at Kenilworth Road.
Yeah, we do. I mean, he mentioned it in the sort of chat that you had with him after the game for Sheffield United, that, part that we're all on Man United, we can still do great things, and he can certainly do great things in this game. I mean, even if it is Shaw, yes, Shaw's brilliantly as a positional left back. He isn't pacey though, so there's no reason why he can't stand him up and whiz past him. But obviously, if it's not Shaw, it'd be so much easier, because I do think Shaw is the best left back in the country, English left back in the country. But that's got to be an area where we target, hasn't it, down that right-hand side, particularly with Download down the other side being so quick.
Absolutely. I think, it's if we can get him in any way, shape or form playing with space to run into, which again, they might look at and try and stop, but only really when he's been fully fit. Those you did mention when he was not quite firing because he was fit. Sheffield United did a job on him, but everybody else have almost not considered him that much of a danger man, and he's shown them what he really is about. I think it'd be interesting. I think if Chio does play and you get your wish and Sam and Townsend plays, because I think they've worked really well down there. I mean, the formation has sort of changed since they were in those days, but they did have a good link up. Yeah, I think that could be quite dangerous.
Yeah, I thought they linked up pretty well on Saturday as well. It's just nothing came from it. Yeah. The other sort of area where I think we can get at this Man United side, they done half piss about a bit at the back, led by their goalkeeper, who, I mean, everyone tells us he's an abomination waiting to happen, but he made that world-class save from Morris's header at their place, didn't he? However, he's definitely got a ricket or two in him. So our high press against these defenders and that goalkeeper in particular, we should surely have some joy in this situation. Elijah, Morris, whether it's Townsend, whether it's Clark, whether it's even Chong. I've heard some calls for Chong to play the game, and he'll be motivated against his first club as well. But our high press against these defenders who like to dilly-dally, we could get some real joy in that area.
100%. I don't know what it is about teams that like to muck around with it at the back, but when we press them, it's almost as if they've never been tackled before. It happened against Brighton. It was happening against Liverpool, Arsenal. They don't like it at all, and I think they'll be prime targets for that, Man United.
Is that how you see it? I mean, Elijah, he does it brilliantly, doesn't he? And you can just see it now, can't you? Maguire or Varane, they take a liberty, particularly Maguire. He's not the best with his feet, is he? And all of a sudden we're in, aren't we? And I mean, if Elijah's the one that gets the ball off Harry Maguire and goes past him, well, he ain't coming back, is he? And I really do think there's some joy there, Jimbo.
I think so. I think there is. Whenever Luton play that aggressive press, which pretty much is most of the time they do it. It didn't work at the weekend, but it was a completely different game there. I think you're right. When there's not many teams I see play it around the back where I think you're not going to touch them. I think Man City were slightly like that. They were very, very good. But everybody tries to play this style of football, and I'm not entirely sure why, because it's so risky. Yeah. Burnley try it and they just can't, and that's one of the reasons why they're down where they are. Obviously, Man United a bit further up the table and will fancy themselves. They've got internationals all across the board, haven't they? So they won't be short of confidence, but yeah, they won't have the space to knock it around like they do at Old Trafford. And I think that is another factor that sort of plays into Luton's hands.
Yeah, it does. The other one is set pieces. Aston Villa's goal came from a set piece on Sunday. Prior to that, I think Wolves scored one of their goals against them from a set piece as well. you would think with Harry Maguire and Raphael Varane at centre halves that they'd be good at defending these set pieces, but generally they're not. And of course, they're missing Lissandro Martinez at the back, who's generally been their best defender. He's out for a while now. So it will be Maguire and Varane unless they bring Lindelof into the side. So set pieces are another important part of our play. And hopefully Alfie's crosses don't hit Hatter's way and can find our players' heads and we can get a goal or chances from them.
Yeah, I think set pieces in every game are massively important for us, and ultimately, when we're getting them wrong, is usually a game we lose, isn't it? Like at Sheffield United, as we said before, and a couple of games previously. But when they're going right, our set pieces are so dangerous. We don't score from every one of them, but when we're causing havoc in their box, it again creates a panicked atmosphere for them, and that's just something we're going to galvanise on.
Yeah, looking forward to the set pieces as well, particularly with this goalkeeper. He's a bit erratic is the term that they use, isn't it? Scatty is more the term that I use. But I mean, you mentioned the way Man City play at the back. They've basically got a midfielder in goal, haven't they, in Edison? The rest of them think they've got a midfielder in goal, but he is actually a midfielder in goal with his passing range. It's ridiculous. Anything else? Any other sort of things that you're thinking about for this game?
Well, I mean, I'm sure it's a Cabore's that wanted to get back in, but I think I'm not sure how he does if you're going to play Chio there and if you can squeeze Townsend inside as well. But, so I think probably that would be it. I don't think the thing is, Luton didn't play massively badly against Sheffield United. They got undone some mistakes. They tried to play football and there weren't the spaces. They were doing a lot of the right things and just not coming off. So it's not like you have to make wholesale changes, I don't think. It's one to reassess and think how you can change it up a little bit when it becomes a bit stale like that. But I don't think that's what this game is going to be. And so I don't think you need to completely change the squad when they are still playing quite well. It was just one of those awful days when nothing went right.
Yeah, agreed. Sunday afternoon under the floodlights. Last time we had one of those was against Liverpool, and we know what a great night that was. And I'm sure this one will be equally the same. We will finish the preview as ever with our score predictions. Sam, as you're a guest on the show, we'll let you go first. How do you see Luton Town v Man United finishing?
I'm going to say 2-1 Luton. Yeah, I'm going to say 2-1 Luton, and I think we're going to see a goal. Probably a goal from Morris in open play.
Goal from Morris in open play. And it'd be very nice if he gets one of those penalties and does the exact same thing again and a third goalkeeper on the trot falls for it. That would be that'd be fantastic. Jimbo, couldn't have been any more spectacularly wrong for the Sheffield United game if we tried. Let's try and do a little bit better with this one. How does Luton v Man United finish?
I think karma done me up on that one. So if we're going to try and play karma at its own game, then I'm going to say 7-0 to Man United and expect the Luton win.
Fair enough.
Very good.
Don't think it'll be 7-0 to Man United. I hope it's not 7-0 to Man United, that's for sure. I'm not really sure how I see this one going, actually. Do think there'll be goals, though. I think we'll take a point. Well, would love 3 points, but a point will be okay. 2-2. How's that for size? 2-2. Luton 2, Man United 2. So 2-1 win for Sam. Let's forget that one. And 2-2 draw for me, but I'll be more than happy if we turn out with one of those 3-2 wins that tend to be the case when Luton famous victories come along.
We could have our first 0-0 of the season.
We could.
It doesn't seem to happen around us, but there you go.
I was going to give you a sensible answer, but we always seem to pick the same score, and I was going to go for a Desmond as well. But
there you go.
2-2 then. 2-2 and 2-1.
Come on, karma. Let me down again.
Yeah, I tell you, if it is 7-0, the review podcast.
I'm not coming back.
The review podcast.
I will not be here. I'll see you later.
Yeah, no, I will go and get every other guest that I can. That's for sure. No. So that's our correct scores. Let's have your correct scores. We do keep notes of them. And as always, if you get one right, we will give you a shout out in the review podcast, which will be out slightly later next week for the simple reason that the football match is slightly later next week. Thanks for watching and listening. Thanks so much, Sam, for coming to see us. We've really appreciated and enjoyed having you on the podcast this week.
Oh, pleasure. Thanks for having me on, gents. It's been really fun.
Hopefully we can get you back on before the season ends, or if not, sort of early on next season. I would love to have you back again.
Absolutely.
Jimbo, thanks for keeping us company as well.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thanks for everyone for your comments. Keep those coming in. For subscribing. Our subscriber numbers are going up, and we're really grateful to everyone who subscribes. As I say, slightly different schedule next week, so if you have subscribed, you'll know exactly when the review podcast drops, and of course the preview for the Liverpool game, which will come hot on the heels of that. So podcasts will be coming thick and fast next week, as they seem to be doing right now. Thanks to the Hightown Club for hosting the podcast, to Sean Grant and the Wolfgang for our intro music, and to Ed Smith Creative for all the designs that you see on set. All that's left to say until the review podcast, come on you Hatters, be loud and proud on Sunday if you're going, and let's get 3 points, get this show back on the road.
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got these massive souls. We're Luton people.